Video has been going viral of Israeli extremists publicly point blank executing two Palestinians that surrendered. Take a listen to this.
What this CCTV shows is two men emerging from a building, and they come out with their hands up, sort of on their hands and knees. One of them lifts up his shirt to perhaps show that he isn't armed, and they appear to be surrendering. But then for some reason, it appears that they are sent back into the building. They crawl back in, and then we're going to lose the pictures at this moment, because this is the moment where the Israeli soldiers appear to open fire and shoot them dead at point blank range.
So, of course, this has been going viral. Israel's security minister, as they call it, Itamar Ben-Gvir, actually praised what the Israelis did. Israeli officers kill two Palestinians appearing to surrender. Isn't that crazy? Even AI-generated summaries of the event on X, they'll say appearing to surrender. They surrendered. They surrendered. They didn't appear to surrender. They had their hands up and they surrendered. So, of course, the media loves to spin it that way, but they surrendered. So the incident occurred on November 27th during a counterterrorism operation, quote, quote, as Israel calls it, in Jenin, where officers targeted suspects accused of throwing explosives and shooting at forces. Israel described the men as wanted militants who emerged after a multi-hour surrender process, while Palestinian officials called it cold-blooded execution. Israel's national security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, praised the officers, approved the promotion amid the probe, and criticized the questioning of three undercover officers suspected of unlawful fire. The event highlights ongoing tensions when the military reviewing the gunfire. This is what I'm going to say, and I want to make this very, very clear. Any Palestinian that attacks and does whatever they do to Israelis in the occupied West Bank, I don't see that as extremism. If a Palestinian murders an IDF soldier in the West Bank, tell me this, genuinely, please explain this to me. If a Palestinian in the West Bank that is in their own land while Israelis are occupying that land, it's the West Bank. I'm not talking about Israel proper. I'm talking about the West Bank. If a Palestinian is defending themselves in the West Bank and trying to boot out an occupier, how is that extremism? Can somebody please genuinely explain this to me? Imagine for a second. I think hypotheticals sometimes are better. Imagine for a second the Chinese invaded the United States. Somehow, against all odds, they did it. And they were able to settle in a part of Texas. They ended up taking about a quarter of Texas, completely occupied the space. Despite the U.S. Air Force, despite the U.S. National Guard, everything, the Chinese ended up occupying a quarter of Texas. And they ended up building Chinese settlements in Texas. Okay. They tried to strip the native Texans away from their weapons, and they're living in basically apartheid. Do you think that if a Texan decides to shoot at or try to get rid of the Chinese occupation of Texas, are they now an extremist? Genuinely, are they an extremist? How is this any different? It's not. I do not understand how people can look at the situation and somehow approve of Israel conducting extremist raids in the West Bank. They shouldn't even be there. So no shit, people are going to be fighting back. It blows my mind. Genuinely, I don't understand how people try to rationalize this. If it was any other country and they were being occupied by a foreign power, you would do whatever you had to do to get them out of there. So how does it make sense that when a Palestinian does it, they're called an extremist? My family's in the occupied West Bank. They're in a small village, and they're next to the most violent settlement in the entire occupied West Bank. I've talked about that a lot. I've showed a lot of footage. They're called Yitzhar, the extremist settlers. And Palestinians in the West Bank can't carry weapons. Israeli settlers in the West Bank carry M16s funded by the U.S. taxpayer, and they're actually U.S. M16 rifles that are provided by the U.S. government and sent to Israel. Okay, Palestinians live in villages in the valleys. The Israeli settlers that occupy their land take all the hilltops, and they basically keep an eye on Palestinians. They get thermal imaging drones by synagogue charities in the United States and Brooklyn that fundraise for these thermal imaging drones. They basically have the Palestinians herded down like cattle, okay? In Palestinian land, it's the occupied West Bank. Any Palestinian that tries to stand up to that is considered an extremist by Israel's standards. Is that okay? Is that okay? Imagine if for a second it was the Chinese and they just started colonizing and taking American soil. You think anybody would just allow that to happen? Oh, because God forbid, it's called an American extremist trying to take back the Chinese occupation. There is no difference. There is no difference whatsoever. But we somehow normalize this sort of shit. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it's very upsetting to see that people are still brainwashed by this sort of propaganda. There is no justification for it. And quite honestly, if it was any other group of people, they would be fully justified in going to war and trying to rid the occupier off their land. It's that simple. Get the hell out of there. Get the hell out of there. And then Israel wants to talk about how they're trying to stop extremism in the West Bank. You shouldn't be there. Here's another thing. Just a few days ago, I don't know if anybody else has seen it on the news, Israeli settlers, ridiculous, mentally messed up settlers, went into Syria. Not the Golan Heights, which is also occupied Syria, beyond the Golan Heights. They broke the barrier and they went into Syria. Why? Because they wanted to build an outpost in Syria, in southern Syria. Let me pull up the article here. This happened a couple of days ago. Now, I will say, because I do want to be frank and honest about this, is that the IDF did end up taking them back and bringing them back before they could apparently build the outposts. And the IDF brought them back to Israel for their safety, quote unquote. But don't think that this won't happen again and again, because this is what these settlers like to do. They like to just immediately, once Israel has taken control of a certain area, they immediately want to go in and build a settlement there because they have this messed up greater Israel, God's chosen people mentality, where the entire Middle East is now their playground. And they just want to take everything they can. And if anybody, whether it's a Palestinian or a Lebanese or a Syrian, fights back to stop their land from being taken from them, they're the extremists. Dude, just give me a damn break. So settlers enter Syria. Let me pull up this article. Here it is. Oh my gosh, the Times of Israel, the way they report on it is hilarious. Settler activists, as the Time of Israel calls it, settler activists cross into Syria, are returned by IDF after brief pursuit. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see this clearly here. Activists say, of course, activists, the Israeli extremist settlers say they seek to establish settlements inside southern Syria, where the military has been deployed for nearly a year. And the article goes on. Here's a photo of them basically opening up this barrier fence that was previously closed, so that way they could enter and build their outposts. A group of Israeli settler activists, dude, the word activist is so annoying by the Times of Israel. A group of Israeli settler activists in vehicles crossed the border from Israel into Syria at 2 locations on Thursday afternoon in an attempt to establish new settlements. The IDF launched a pursuit after the suspects eventually locating all of them and bringing them back to Israel. In all, some 13 settler extremists crossed the border, 5 in Mount Hermon area, 8 near the Syrian village of Beir Ajam in the Golan Heights. So this is kind of the thing that's going on. Now, do you notice how when the Times of Israel reports on them, they're called activists, settler activists? Okay, these people that are going into a foreign country to steal their land are activists. Palestinians that defend their land in the occupied West Bank are extremists. What is going on, dude? I don't care who you are. You can't listen to that, and it doesn't make any sort of sense. And yet people that support Israel somehow try to justify this as if it makes any sense. And until it would happen to them, until a foreign power comes into the United States and tries to occupy the United States, American citizens would probably be the last people to ever allow that sort of thing to happen. Yet we have American Zionists here that try to rationalize when it happens to Palestinians. So anyways, guys, that's it for this video. If you found it interesting, make sure to go ahead and click the subscribe button below and give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.